There are things that only fathers know. And as we approach Father's Day, this is worth talking about. It's worth talking about more than politics, but it does relate to politics because there are things only fathers find out. I've written about this in my memoir, The Great Good Thing. I did not have a good relationship with my father, which is painful because he wasn't a bad person. He had a lot of integrity. He was good to my mother. He supported us and gave us a good life. But he and I just did not get along. And I remember when my daughter was born, my first child, my daughter Faith, bringing her home, and I was terrified that I wouldn't be a better father to her than my father was to me. And I remember the minute I brought her home, I thought, that's too low a bar. I can do that. And the reason I felt that way is not because, like I said, my father wasn't a bad guy. It was because my father was a performer, and he had that, and a comedian, which is a particular kind of performer, and he had that element of narcissism that a lot of performers, a lot of artists have. And when I say narcissism, what I don't mean is he thought he was so great. What I mean is that he didn't understand that other people truly existed outside of his imagination. I remember several times he said to me that when he was on a train or traveling through somewhere and he saw other people on the street, he found it very difficult to imagine they went on living after he was gone. And I think that made it impossible for him to separate from his sons and realize that we were different people and we might want different things. And that was the thing that it just happens to be weirdly true of me, even though, like all artists, I have a very strong ego. I mean, an artist needs a strong ego because he spends a lot of time looking at himself and exploring himself and feeling that what he has to say is worthwhile, which takes a certain amount of ego. But I'm not a narcissist. I'm very much aware that other people exist. And in fact, I think that fatherhood done right is the process of shining the light so that your kids can become themselves, which sometimes can be uncomfortable. There may be things about your kids that God made them that you are uncomfortable with. There may be things that they think intellectually. Maybe they'll come back later on to things you like, but they may distance themselves from ideas that you hold very dear. But as long as your children are honest and steadfast and true in the world and faithful to, and have integrity and faithful to good values, they are going to be different people, and your job is to let them become that and lead them to themselves. I mean, that is your job as a dad. And I think that act of letting go of yourself, of not making it about yourself, of not making your kids imitate you, and yet being yourself so that they can see what that's like. I liken, it's kind of a corny metaphor, but it's a good one, that a mother is kind of, if a child is like a plant, a mother is like the earth that feeds them, nurtures them. They come out of her. But a father is like the sun in that they grow toward him and they can see by who he is, what they are supposed to be like. That's especially important for sons, but obviously important for daughters as well, so they know what a good man looks like. And I think I used to say to my wife, it's not enough for us to do right. We have to love doing right. We have to be joyful in the right, so they don't think like, well, I have to do these things because mom and dad want me to. No, I wanted them to say this is the joyful way of life, because it is. On the show yesterday, we had a question. I don't think, I got to answer it a little bit, but I didn't get to fully answer, put in my thing. The conversation just kind of went on its way. Somebody asked, why is God a father in the Bible? And of course, God is not gendered the way we are gendered, but we think of him as a father, and we have the father and his son. And why is that? And one of the reasons I think it is because, like fathers, God makes us, but we are not part of him. We're not deists. We believe that this is creation. This is something God made. You're always sort of part of your mother. You came out of your mother. You're always connected to her in some essential way. But a father is really leading you to yourself so that you can be free. And God is doing the same thing. And he does it in this invisible manner. One of the things about being a father is you're not looking to be thanked. You're not looking, obviously you want to be appreciated, but you understand that when it rains and your kids don't get wet, they don't look around and say, Dad, that's that dad. I like him. He put a roof over my head. You understand that that's not what's happening. On a kind of a side note, a lot of times it's hard for people to define the good. I write about this in my novel, Werewolf Cop, where one of the guys says, bad things are active. Rape, murder, killing, bad things. But when you think about good things, you often think about people who are stopping bad things. So you think about the doctor who heals diseases. You think about the cop who stops crime. You think about the fireman who puts out a fire. It's almost as if that evil is essential and good is contingent. And it only looks that way because being itself is good. because the life itself is good. The creation of God itself is good. So it's really the evil that's contingent. The evil is contingent on life, and the people who are doing good to stop the evil are in fact in support of life. It is the being that is good, and that's God's invisible goodness. And God operates, Aristotle said this is God, people talk about God as the prime mover, the mover who is not moved. And people think of that as him pushing the rock uphill or, turning the machinery. But in fact, he operates by drawing us invisibly to himself. And that is what makes us move, his love.